On June 12, 2025, Air India flight AI-171 stood ready at Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport in Ahmedabad. Its destination was London Gatwick, a routine long-haul journey familiar to its experienced crew and state-of-the-art aircraft. The plane, a Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner with registration VT-ANB, was a symbol of modern aviation's reliability and technological prowess. At 1:38 in the afternoon, under clear skies and with stable weather conditions, the flight began its takeoff roll. There was no indication, no warning sign to the 242 souls on board that this journey would be tragically cut short, ending just moments after it began, marking a dark day in the history of Indian and global aviation. The initial ascent was unremarkable, a standard procedure witnessed thousands of times a day at airports worldwide. However, something went terribly wrong in those first crucial minutes. Flight tracking data would later reveal a story of a desperate struggle in the cockpit. The aircraft managed to climb to an altitude of only about 625 feet, a fraction of its intended cruising height, before its ascent faltered. A Mayday call was declared, a stark, urgent signal of grave distress that cut through the routine radio chatter. Shortly after that desperate plea for help, air traffic control lost all contact with AI-171, and the aircraft vanished from their radar screens. Witnesses in the densely populated area of Megani Nagar, located perilously close to the airport's perimeter, looked up to see a terrifying sight. The massive Dreamliner was flying alarmingly low, its landing gear still extended, a clear and unusual sign that the crew was fighting a critical emergency. The roar of its engines was followed by a deafening blast that reverberated through the neighborhood. The aircraft descended rapidly, leaving a fiery plume of smoke against the clear afternoon sky. For those on the ground, the ordinary rhythm of their day was shattered by an unimaginable catastrophe unfolding directly above their heads. The final moments of Flight AI-171 were violent and devastating. The plane came down not in an open field, but in the heart of a residential community. The impact was catastrophic, as the massive fuselage and wings tore through buildings, scattering debris and igniting a massive inferno. The dream of a journey to London had transformed into a nightmare of fire, smoke, and destruction in a quiet Indian neighborhood. The routine departure had concluded in a tragic, unthinkable end, leaving a community and a nation to grapple with the immense scale of the loss and the burning question of what went so horribly wrong. The immediate aftermath of the crash in Megani Nagar was a scene of chaos and horror. The aircraft's main fuselage had struck several buildings, including the Atulyam Hostel, which housed senior resident doctors from the nearby BJ Medical College. The impact obliterated parts of the structure, turning a place of rest and study into a disaster zone. Debris, both from the aircraft and the damaged buildings, rained down across a wide area. The initial blast was followed by a raging fire, fueled by thousands of kilograms of jet fuel, which sent thick black smoke billowing into the air, visible for miles around and complicating the immediate rescue efforts. The toll on human life was staggering and immediate. Onboard Flight AI-171 were 230 passengers and a dedicated crew of 12. As first responders navigated the wreckage, the grim reality became clear. The crash was not survivable for the vast majority of those on board. Families who had been anticipating a reunion in London were instead met with silence, followed by the devastating news. The passenger manifest represented a cross-section of society. Tourists, business travelers, families and students, all of their futures extinguished in a matter of moments. The loss was not just a statistic, but a collection of individual tragedies that rippled across continents. The tragedy was not confined to the passengers and crew in the sky. The crash claimed innocent lives on the ground, adding another layer of heartbreak to the disaster. The impact on the BJ Medical College community was particularly severe. At least 5 people on the ground were killed, including 3 promising MBBS students who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. An additional 45 people from the college and surrounding area were hospitalized with injuries. These were people going about their daily lives, their safety shattered by the falling aircraft, a cruel twist of fate that underscored the indiscriminate nature of the disaster. Amidst the overwhelming loss, a small miracle emerged. Initial reports, tragically and incorrectly, suggested there were no survivors. However, as the chaos subsided and a methodical search began, officials confirmed that 2 people had miraculously survived the impact. One survivor, a British Indian passenger named Ramesh Vishwakarma, was reportedly seated in row 11A and managed to escape the wreckage. His survival, against all odds, offered a tiny glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark and somber narrative. The final confirmed toll stood at 204 fatalities, a number that included both those on the plane and the victims on the ground. The crash of Air India flight AI-171 was not just a tragedy, it was a significant and unsettling milestone in modern aviation. The aircraft involved was the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, a technological marvel introduced to great fanfare. Since its first commercial flight, the Dreamliner had built an impeccable safety record. It had flown millions of passengers over countless hours without a single fatal accident. This unblemished history was a point of pride for Boeing and a source of confidence for airlines and the travelling public. On June 12, 2025, that perfect record was irrevocably shattered, sending shockwaves through the entire aerospace industry. This incident marked the first fatal accident and the first hull loss of a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. The aircraft was celebrated for its advanced composite materials, fuel efficiency, and sophisticated electronic systems. Its design was meant to represent the future of air travel, safer, more comfortable, and more reliable than ever before. The crash immediately raised urgent questions about the aircraft itself. Was this a one-off tragic anomaly caused by an external factor? Or did it point to a previously unknown vulnerability in the Dreamliner's design or systems? The world's aviation community held its breath, awaiting answers. An intense and comprehensive investigation was launched almost immediately. India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation, or DGCA, took the lead, but the global nature of aviation meant this would be a collaborative effort. Because the aircraft was manufactured in the United States, the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration dispatched teams to assist. Representatives from Boeing, the aircraft's manufacturer, also flew to Ahmedabad to provide technical expertise. The goal was singular and paramount: to find the cause of the crash and ensure such a tragedy could never happen again. The search for the aircraft's black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, became the top priority for investigators combing through the debris. These devices held the key to understanding the aircraft's final, desperate moments. They contained critical data on the plane's performance, system statuses, and the conversations between the pilots. The British Airline Pilots Association issued a statement calling for a thorough and transparent investigation, a sentiment echoed by aviation authorities worldwide. Until those recorders were found and their data analysed, the cause of the Dreamliner's first fatal fall would remain a painful and unsettling mystery. The response on the ground in Ahmedabad was swift and massive, a testament to the coordination of local and national emergency services. Within minutes of the crash, the first of what would eventually be dozens of fire engines and ambulances were racing to the scene. The Indian Army deployed approximately 130 personnel to secure the area and assist in the search and rescue operations. They were joined by teams from the National Disaster Response Force, the Central Reserve Police Force, and local police who worked tirelessly amidst the hazardous conditions to search for survivors and recover the victims with dignity. As the scale of the tragedy became known, messages of sorrow and solidarity began to pour in from across the globe. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has deep ties to the state of Gujarat, expressed his profound grief, calling the crash heartbreaking beyond words. In the United Kingdom, the flight's intended destination, Prime Minister Keir Starmer offered his deepest condolences, as did King Charles. Leaders from the United States, Canada, France, Australia and the European Union, among many others, shared messages of support for the victims, their families, and the people of India during this moment of national mourning. In the corporate world, Air India and its parent company, the Tata Group, moved quickly to manage the crisis with compassion. The airline immediately established a crisis support center and set up dedicated helplines for the families of those on board. As a mark of respect, Air India's vibrant logo and website were turned to black and white. The Tata Group went further, announcing a significant compensation of 1 crore rupees for the family of each deceased passenger and pledging to cover all medical expenses for the injured. They also committed to funding the rebuilding of the BJ Medical College Hostel, acknowledging their responsibility to the community that had also suffered so grievously. In the days that followed, the focus shifted to supporting the families who had lost so much. Air India organized special relief flights from Delhi and Mumbai to bring the next of kin to Ahmedabad, providing them with accommodation and support as they faced the grim task of identification. Union Home Minister Amit Shah and Civil Aviation Minister Ramahan Naidu visited the crash site to oversee the response and offer comfort to the bereaved. The crash of AI-171 was a multifaceted tragedy, and the response, from the local first responders to the highest levels of government and international leadership, reflected a shared sense of humanity in the face of an unimaginable loss.